Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's eClaims webinar. We ask you to please keep your phone lines muted as we will be using the chat feature to receive your questions today. Please enter your questions throughout the presentation in the chat box located on the right side of your screen. Use the drop-down to send your questions to the panelists. You can also hover over the WebEx tab at the top of your screen and click on Chat. We will answer as many of your questions as we can, but if you have questions that we don't get to today or think of something after the session ends, we will be providing you with resources at the end of the presentation. Today we will be covering 3.0 and 3.1 news, table changes, 3.1 changelog items, and 3.0 to 3.1 cutover dates. We will also take questions at the end of the webinar. First, we'll review eClaims recent news since August webinar. I will now turn the presentation over to Michael Hunter, who will review the Claims EDI 3.1 news.
Thanks, Patty. As most of you probably received our email blast a couple weeks ago, the March 2021 implementation date was postponed until later in 2021. It'll be no earlier than July 2021. This extension is going to allow the board to perform an accurate and successful implementation of R3.1 while providing additional time for all the trading partners to complete their preparations for the transition. We will have a new go-live communicated as soon as possible. With that go-live date, we had a couple questions about testing. And with those, we will also communicate the new testing dates as well. Those will be delayed, though, obviously. So the November date will be pushed back, and we will announce that as part of the any announcement on our go-live date. A couple other things that were posted recently was the September 15th, the webinar slide deck and the YouTube video recording are now available out on the eClaims presentation page. We've also updated the Release 3.1 element requirements table in mid-September, as well as updated the changelog. Not on the slide, but another thing that we just posted today actually is the latest eClaims summary for the changes from Release 3 to Release 3.1. The most important thing you'll want to note on there is that all the changes since the previous release earlier this summer are going to be highlighted in gold. So if Patty scrolls down just a little bit, we'll see a little bit of the gold right there. So anything that we've changed since our last posting, just to make it easy for you, we've highlighted that in gold for you. The other thing you're going to notice is it's all formatted, and you'll notice it's consistent with the other board postings with our branding and colors as well. So we invite you to visit that out on the eClaims website. And again, changes are in gold, and if anyone has questions after looking at that, as always, you can contact the eClaims team. The next document that was updated was the Froy 02 transaction processing for Claims Release 3.1. Again, you'll see some of the branding and some of the colors, as well as some minor changes as well. Some of those dates, if any place references, obviously the March 15th implementation date, that will be updated as well when a new implementation date is announced. Just to highlight a couple of the changes that were made and are noted on the changelog. Element requirements, the Schroy conditional requirements for DN84. We just made a minor correction. We didn't note that it was a new edit, so we wanted to add that since it was important. We were actually adding a new condition to DN84 so that it was required if BTC 530, which is the employer pay, lump sum scheduled. The next change was on the element requirements for the FROI. It was for DN 437. We just discovered that that had somehow been removed from the element requirement table. We're not taking the employee individual taxpayer identification number, but it is important, obviously, that we have it on there, even though we're not taking it since it is an IAIBC data element and should have not been removed from that table. And I'm going to go over the first half of the topics for this month. And the first topic is for DN 154, edit 111, the error. We recently discovered that trading partners are sending the JCN and other data in the employee ID assigned by jurisdiction field. We discovered there was an issue with the edit for that field, as those who do submit the employee ID assigned by jurisdiction, you'll know that we have that algorithm that's in place. Senders are highly encouraged to review that data element in their system and fix that data, as New York will be fixing the edit issue to enforce the correct edit, which is using our algorithm. You will want to file a FROI-02 to either update that employee ID, or if you've obtained the Social Security number, per the current rules, you're supposed to be filing the FROI-02 in that circumstance. We also encourage that you use eCase. You can use eCase as a tool in case a medical report or other document like a C3 has this claimant's Social Security number on it. You can find that either on the Case Info tab or the Case Folder tab in eCase. And anyone that has questions about either Release 3 or Release 3.1 tables, you can visit the eClaims website and select either the 3.0 or 3.1 option to review the element requirement and edit matrix tables. This is just a copy of the DN error message table, just to show you for DN 154, employee ID assigned by jurisdiction. You'll see the errors there, such as the error 111 that I just mentioned on the slide before, must be valid content, and that goes back to having it in the specific algorithm that we have posted out on the website. For the FROI element requirements table, we just wanted to post and reiterate that employee ID assigned by jurisdiction is a mandatory conditional for the 00, fatal for the 02. The most important thing is that it's required on the 00, 01, 04, AQ, AU, and AR. It would only be required if you do not have the Social Security number. If you have the Social Security number, you ID. On the Schroy, required if the employee type qualifier is A, employee ID assigned by jurisdiction. And most importantly, though, is the population restriction, which lays out the algorithm that we use. Rather than us assigning it, we wanted to give flexibility back in the original 3.0 implementation. So it's very simply just the first 6 characters of the employee date of birth in year, month, and day format. 6 nines if you don't know the date of birth. then the first character of the employee first name, followed by the first 8 characters of the employee last name. So for example, it might be 771101 M Hunter in the case of Michael Hunter with a date of birth of 11/01/1977. That is the format that should be coming in. As I previously mentioned, though, we have now found that folks are submitting mostly JCNs for certain trading partners. We have reached out to some trading partners already to let them know that we've found this and ask them to fix it. But we do encourage everyone to just make sure that you are not submitting other information in that field. With that, I will turn it over to Patty, who's going to talk about the new benefit change reason code.
Thank you, Mike. The new benefit change reason code will be published in the IAIABC's January 2021 implementation guide. The benefit change reason code is reported at the claim level. It identifies the reason why the benefit type code or the net weekly amount is changing. The benefit change reason code is not done at the benefit segment level. The benefit change reason code can only be required or reported on a SHROI CB or CA. It cannot be reported on any other SHROI MTC. This data element should not be carried over to future transactions. If the change can be determined on another DN, then this cannot be made mandatory. Jurisdictions should have a statutory reason currently in place to require this data element. As stated previously, the new benefit change reason code is mandatory on the CA and CB. You can find these changes on the element requirement tables and on the IAIABC's change log under item number 197. You'll also find this on the edit matrix and the IAIABC's change log 127. This slide shows the valid values that can be used. Claim administrators should pick the most appropriate value when sending their transaction. Currently, in 3.0, trading partners are required to submit correspondence within 3 days of their SHROI CB or CA, giving the document ID. Right now, they are either faxed to the board or sent to the WCB claims filing mailbox. The address for the central mailing is available on the board's website if it's needed. This was meant to be a short-term solution and will be changing in 3.1. Once 3.1 is implemented, trading partners will no longer need to fax or mail the correspondence because this new data element notifies the board of the change and why. Trading partners should use the value of A for independent medical exam or a claim administrator's consultant or the appropriate value that meets the needs of the transaction.
So we just want to make sure that you're aware of the methods to stay informed on our eClaims news and upcoming engagement opportunities. You can visit our eClaims website at wcb.ny.gov and click on the eClaims link. You can also sign up to receive notifications about our BIS project, which was just announced. The new name is Onboard. And you can visit the eClaims site and click on WCB notifications within the overview section. Any questions you have regarding 3.1 can be emailed to eclaims31@wcb.ny.gov. And any questions regarding our existing 3.0 process can continue to be sent to eclaims@wcb.ny.gov. You can also follow us on the board's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And a recording of this webinar will be placed on our YouTube and eClaims website. And any FAQs that come from questions raised today will be posted on our website also. And thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time today.